Hey y'all, it's Sharla from the Hartzell Homestead here on the Creative Retreat YouTube channel. I am so excited to be here today for several reasons. It's my first time to be on the Creative Retreat channel. It's a tremendous blessing to me to be part of a creative team that has had such a wonderful impact on my life already. I'm very excited to start this journey. This October kit, y'all, Alpha and Omega, is absolutely gorgeous. All of the fall colors, the graphics, everything is beautiful about the kit creatively. And then the devotion on top of it is wonderful. It is very meaningful. It is beautifully written. I've studied it several times already. I have to kind of go through things in the Word before I get a creative inspiration going. And with that, the creative inspiration that I got this month is going to challenge me to use all of these beautiful pieces and printables into a creative junk journal altered book kind of project. I have had this project sitting over on my side table for so long. Do y'all do that? It's like, I want to do this, but I'm just not ready to start it yet. This is the one. All of these beautiful books reminded me of a stack of books that I picked up at a flea market or garage sale or thrift store somewhere. I collect beautiful books, old hymnals, things like that. And I have been picking up and keeping all of the bits and pieces and pretty little things that I want to use one day. And this kit has inspired me to start that. So pull up a chair and join me as we get started with some creative study today. My goal for this book project is to give me a place to do something a little different creatively, and also to document my answers for the reflection questions. I want to hold myself a little more accountable. I tend to read the devotional, study the devotional, and then answer the reflection questions in my mind, but I don't ever really write down physical answers. And so I wanted to have a place that I could store those and be able to have room to write all of those answers down. So the teacher in me just would not let me cut apart my beautiful devotional. Jessica Drews has written a wonderful devotional for us this month, and I just like to keep all of my originals. I like to have a master copy. So what I did, so that I could include devotional content in this book for every one of the kits that I go through, I made a copy on my copier. You can make copies of your physical pieces for personal use. And so I printed that out on a little bit of tea-stained paper to give it a little more vintage feel. Now, if you don't have the physical kit, you can go over to Creative Retreat Kits and shop the Faithfilled Digitals tab in the menu, and that way you have access to printing out a copy of your own. You also can manipulate them a little bit. It gives you some access to the back paper, and I took that apart in a digital editing program and made me a little piece of paper that you see kind of going on in the background here. Y'all, I was so excited to see the plaid in the graphics for the kit. I am an all plaid girl. I love all the fall flannels and plaid blankies and all the cozy stuff. So I wanted to feature this little plaid piece on the title page. I think I'm going to use plaid also in my Bible entry when I go to do that. I just love the pattern. I love the colors. So what I did was tear it off, and notice I tore it toward me. So that way I had a little bit of the white kind of ruffled edges, if you will. So that way I could go in and do a little distressing. Now you saw me pull out in and out real quick, like a blending mat, which is really my Dollar Tree cutting mat. It works beautifully. It gives you a slick surface, so that way you can use the blending brush to come in on and off of your papers, and it brings the ink on and off with it. So here I'm just affixing it just gently. I'm putting a little strip of tape on the back, so that way I can still manipulate it. I've got it in place, but I wanted to continue building with it. So you see me going through kind of a series of using this stamp. I had to use this particular woodcut, kind of a wood cookie look stamp, because if you know me and you live close, you know that we have trees all over our yard. My husband has a sawmill, so we are constantly cutting up cookies, doing wood crafts, all of that kind of stuff. So when I saw this texture piece, it's like it has to be used to document that part of my life in this particular section also. And I loved that. And so I did kind of try to leave my title in place so I would know how I was working around that. as I added these elements in the back. So here I'm going to put on that outside bark ring. I'm using that tea stain color. I'm kind of continuing with it. It's a little bright. I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and go with it. It may be a cedar tree or something like that. So here I'm just putting that ring on and making sure it kind of lines up. And I'm doing it not necessarily perfect. It's just kind of a background piece. And I love that. See, I don't have a complete impression on that, but it's underneath my title. So I'm just wanting to build some pieces here. And I'm going in and looking at what stickers I want to use and what I want to create there on my title. And so what I decided to do was to kind of emphasize the alpha and omega. There's so many different pieces and ways of saying alpha and omega and defining it, beginning and end and first and last. And so we had all these pieces that do emphasize that and help us learn that and connect that. And so I wanted my title to incorporate all of those elements. And so I went to my cardstock stickers and added the beginning and end at the top, and then the little first and last over in the left corner, and always a wonky heart. I love the little wonky hearts. And so here, you're going to see me do this so many times in this particular process. I would pull off the pieces and like, oh no, that's got too much white edge or too much white showing on the paper, or I wanted it to have a vintage feel. So you see me pulling things back off and going over it with the little bit of distress to give it that vintage look. Several things I learned as I started the process of this book. I'm going to want that vintage feel all the way through it. So I will try to prep some of my blending and distressing a little bit ahead of time so I can have a stack of that off to the side. Knowing I'm working on this book, I have started a little box of bits and pieces, scraps from like the paper that I made here that I mentioned earlier. All of those extra pieces I just put off in the box, and that way I can pull back from them as I work through even other kits. I can mix and match and bring some of those pieces, because that's what a vintage junk journal is. You're putting all sorts of memorabilia and old pieces and all the things that you like. Now I do use a lot of paper clips. You'll see me do this as I'm going through, because I'm just trying to place things. This is really just laying down the foundation for me. I am in no way trying to finish it as I sit here in this first sitting. I'm trying to put down my my frame where I want everything. And I keep going back and forth. I want to look at all the different pages and pieces and make sure that I am getting a cohesive look to it. And so that's kind of where I'm going with this. Now, as I mentioned very early on, I do collect old hymnals. I do have a lot of old books and things with that old paper to it. And I wanted to incorporate a song that I thought the title and the lyrics kind of matched the theme of the kit, where you looking at the support we have in God and the beginning and the end and everywhere in between. And so I did choose a particular title I thought would kind of go with that. Now, if you've ever worked with old books or old hymnals like this, you'll notice that the pages are very, very brittle. And you see some of my edges in there don't want to cooperate, don't want to stick down. They attach themselves to my tape. So I have to just be very careful in the way that I'm attaching it, kind of getting it into place, and then also just leaving the rough edge in the margin. And if it cracks off and crinkles, that's okay. If not, it leaves me a nice, pretty little texture in there. These pages also are from the hymnal that we used recently in my oldest daughter's wedding. She wanted her lavender buds that we threw in their departure in little cones that we made out of these hymnal pages. And it was a wonderful idea, and it was beautiful. And it was a connection to her because she does sing with my husband and father-in-law in a quartet. And so that was a nice tie-in of something that's personal to her. But it was a challenge to get those little brittle papers and cones. But I do love to use the old papers a lot of different ways. And so here I'm using them as a background to my journaling cards. I am going to answer each one of these reflection questions. These are very good, insightful, thought-provoking reflection questions, or they were for me. And so here I'm just going to kind of place, I'm going to use at least 5 where I will answer a question. I end up kind of moving some stuff around and using one a different way and popping in another spot for answering. I love this one, and I wanted it to be a feature with the focus verse on it. Colossians 1:17 reads, He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And with our study this month, we are looking at God's existence before ours and continuing on after ours. And we are looking at what are we doing in the between times. And so my study led me to a little bit of reflection of prioritizing where he is before all things in my life. My role fits into place only when Christ is in his proper place in my life, meaning before all things, when I put Jesus in my life where he should be, then everything else can kind of fall into place. Now, sometimes we make a mess out of it and we need to reflect and come back and put things in order, kind of straighten up our bookshelf a little bit. But when we put Jesus above everything else in our life, we can feel confident in putting everything else in their proper place. In him, all things hold together. Meaning when I put Jesus in priority, first place, above all things in my life, I can have faith in knowing that even when I feel that things are a little out of control or out of sorts or all over the place, that he is holding things together and he is putting everything together in his perfect will. And he works all things together for good. And so we can have that faith and that peace and reassurance that that is taking place as we are going day to day in our life. Now, I do love the books here. You see me starting to I've cut out a little bit all around the edges, did a little fussy cutting. And I want to take this little bookshelf look and tie it in to create a little pocket for some of the journaling cards and little bits and pieces that I'm going to use. I love the illustration of our life being story written day at a time, day by day by day. We are writing our story of our lives with God as, guiding the pen, that we are hopefully following his will for our lives and that we are living a life that is pleasing to him. And so in that illustration with all the books and the bookshelves, in our story day to day, we are building the chapters, we're building the books, we're building the volumes, the whole series of our in-between, our beginning and our end. We've got all different seasons in life documented in all of these stories. And when we have a lot of memories, we can go back and kind of pull a little book off the shelf and revisit a story. We can go back and revisit some lessons in our lives. A lot of different things that this can help us connect visually, like an object lesson, to reflection in our lives. And I do love that. So I wanted to bring those elements in as visual reminders as I go through. I'm going to use this book as a kind of a little scrapbook, if you will, of these kits as I'm going through so that I can have those reflection, like I mentioned, questions and answers. But I'm also going to use this to take notes in as I listen to the other creative team members. I love to hear how the devotionals speak to them, because there's several of us. We all have different creative ideas. We all put the kit together differently in our Bible and in different projects. And it also speaks to each one of us differently because we are in different seasons in life. We are all over the place geographically and have different life experiences. So when we listen to each other, I think that we can learn from each other. And so I wanted to leave some blank spaces. You'll see in here, like, why are you leaving white spots? I wanted to leave some open spots so that when I can sit down and listen and watch some of the other team members, I can jot some notes or little ideas of the scripture, things that they learned from it. I can add that in. And so some of my pages are loose. I didn't affix them down, and I've got some white spots on the papers. And so that gives me a place to go back and take notes. And sometimes I will go back and reread the devotionals from many months ago, just because I'll remember something. It'll kind of stick with me or pop up in my mind when something happens in life, and I go back and I reread that. I'm like, yes, that I can apply that here now, wherever I am in that particular point. So here I am taking, made another copy of my devotional. You kind of see it laying there. I wasn't sure what color paper when I first started, and then I decided to do the tea stain. And that's kind of the fun part of having a digital copy and or making copies for yourself, is that you can, change the color of the paper. You can manipulate it in different ways. And so here I took the kind of a creamy, almost an olive cream color. And so I cut out all my little questions. And so I'm going to attach them and match them up with different cards and find their places where I'm going to put them all through here. I am starting to pull together some of my materials, the cardstock stickers. I'm kind of reviewing and see if I want to add anything here, some of the words. Then I also am starting to pull out some of those little enamel pieces. I love those little hearts and arrows and dots. They just add a little dimension. And so you'll see me using some of those as we go through here too. And so here I am going to start putting together the reflection area. And so my first little card was reflection in him. And I end up not putting these in any particular order. I just started matching them up with cards and how I wanted them to appear. And then I just go back through them and answer them accordingly. Now, I did do some off-camera answering, but it's kind of hard to just write, impromptu. And so I did go back after I finished all of the artwork and do some reflections. One of them that spoke to me, kind of convicted me a little bit more than any of the others, was number 2, where it says, what had you previously been depending on for support? In our devotional, Jessica talks about the strong bookends that she had always wanted when she was young, and relating those to the strong bookends in life that we have with Jesus, our beginning and our end. And so looking at this, it was, in a point in our life, one of the reflection questions says, when we were spiritually lost or emotionally broken, what were we looking at for support that was less sturdy in our bookends? And really, to me, it was like so many times in life, I just depend on self to take care of things. I think that sometimes we want to leave God up on a bookshelf. So you stay here and hold things together. I've got this right now. And really, we don't need to be doing that. He's there to go with us. It's a relationship. We walk in Christ, not ahead of Christ. We walk behind or in line, like with him, carrying us through and guiding us through. So sometimes we get a little off track. And sometimes I'm guilty of, this one seems easy. I've got this. God, thank you very much. And then making a mess of it. He has to come back and teach me some lessons and show me how to clean things up. But that's part of reflection. And sometimes reflection is hard. And sometimes reflection is exposes some things about ourselves that we need to work on. And so I did appreciate that about this. And that was my goal for doing this, is so that when I write down those answers, I am a little more accountable for using those answers and reflection and learning and growing from that. After getting all of the elements pretty much in place, I kind of stepped off camera and spent some more time in reflection. Of course, in doing so, I added some more creative touches here and there. Showing you some pictures here of some of the semi-finished project. I do want to go back and add stuff as I open it up every time to read and reflect. I sure have enjoyed being here with you today, and I hope you learned a little something from the video. I encourage you to subscribe to the Creative Retreat channel. It is full of inspiration and encouragement from all of the team members. And like this video, give it a thumbs up if you liked it. I'll make notes below of everything that I used, links to things that I think that you'll find inspirational and useful also. Have a blessed day.